feel like getting into self-improvement in 2024 is a little overwhelming. Do I do a monk mode? Do I do dopamine detox? Do I do a cold shower every day? Do I need to looks max, edge max, goon max? And overall, there's a lot of noise because at the end of the day, most self-development content is extremely surface level. But don't worry, have no fear. Kenny is here, and I have put together the definitive self-development tier list. I know other people have done this, but honestly, theirs were pretty whack. They did like 5 habits and just yapped about them. I have like 25 habits here. Let's just jump into it. I'm not gonna choose, I'm gonna spin the wheel. Money. Yay! Money is a tool that can help you with a lot of other aspects of developing and actualizing yourself. Not only that, but in the modern age, if you want true freedom and true autonomy in terms of being free from an employer that's overbearing and free from debt, specific amounts of freedom from government because you can move around, location freedom. In reality, money is just kind of a tool to trade for time. Plus, money is the current game that the majority of us play. It's the current status, hierarchy, whatever you want to call it. The only issue I have with this is when it gets into people who sell things that they don't truly believe in. The reason I have no problem promoting mental mastery, link in the description, is because I know it's truly a good product and has helped a lot of people, so I feel no shame in sharing it. That being said, money can also ruin your life because you can get to a certain level, whatever you thought, oh, once I hit this number, my life's fixed, everything's gonna be great. You get there and you realize that wasn't the answer, and then this is why a lot of celebrities and athletes and all these things become extremely self-destructive. You can conquer your mind and consciousness and still have a good life experience without being Bill Gates. We're gonna put it in the A tier, but money's still super important. It's a tool. If you think money's bad, you're just gonna be poor the rest of your life. That's just how it works. You're not gonna attract wealth. The thing about looks maxing is there's a lot of inherent good things within it. Yes, you should be lean, you shouldn't be fat, you should be grooming yourself. Mewing should be your default tongue posture. I mean, just look up the effects of not mewing. It makes people ugly. But after that, you kind of get into the weeds where it gets super autistic, and the reason it gets super autistic is because guys have convinced themselves via a lot of the black pill mentality that looks are the most important thing when it comes to attracting women, and while they're certainly a factor, I don't think they're the biggest thing. You can go watch this video if you want to hear more about that. It's not going to be S tier, it's not going to be A tier, it's not going to be D tier, because like I said, there's a lot of inherent good. Because of that, we're going to throw it into the B tier. Let's move on. The gym. This is where I got started in self-improvement without knowing it, because I was still in mental shambles. I was just an insecure porn addict, but the gym made me healthier. The gym actually is what got me away from video games the first time around, because I grew up being a gamer the entire time, and I thought people that went to the gym were all just narcissistic douchebags, and I thought women that were attracted to fit men were like hoes. As a man, you should be physically capable to a certain degree. If you are super skinny or super fat, the default level of respect and attention people pay you will be lower than someone who is physically fit. That being said, as someone who was once a fitness influencer, it starts to get a little obsessive, retarded, and gay on that, because similar to looks maxing, people think that the gym is just the answer. And that's what I thought. I go to the gym and I lift weights. That's it. That's all I need to do. And it's funny having that mindset, because in reality, I enjoyed going to the gym. Even when my life was in shambles and my mental health was in shambles, I went and hit some deadlifts, you know? But because the gym or calisthenics or exercise, whatever you want to do, it should be a requirement for pretty much everyone, it's going to be S tier. Oh no, you almost got your nofap, but not quite yet. We're going to talk about walking. I'm talking about deliberately going outside and walking around for a while. This may be one of the only times in your day that you give your mind a chance to zoom out and enter this open awareness, and this is where you'll get some of your best ideas, because you're letting your conscious mind be open to notice things surfacing from the subconscious. It's also extremely useful if you want to think something through, place it in your mind, go out for a walk, and just see what your mind tells you. But since it's not something I do every single day, I do it a handful of times a week, it'd be hypocritical for me to put it in S tier. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Just when you thought you weren't gonna hear me yap about meditation, when it comes to self-development, you need to master your mind. You need to build the skill of metacognition, that is becoming aware of your own awareness, that is thinking about your own thoughts. And I say skill because it is something you have to train. Think about every time you meditate as putting money into a bank account. The more you build it up, the more it can serve you in the future. The majority of people who have mastered their minds meditate. In fact, almost everyone does to some extent. And people love to say things like, oh, well, my meditation is working out. My meditation is playing chess. My meditation is journaling. It is not the same thing. Meditation is a very specific practice where you do very specific tactics in order to maintain a state of open awareness and mindfulness. And eventually you will build up that skill to be able to let it carry into the rest of your day, where your default level of mindfulness and metacognition goes up. It is S tier, and that is why I created my free 5-day guided meditation series. Check it out, it's in the description. Caffeine. So I have an interesting relationship with caffeine because as soon as I got into working out, I was taking crazy high stimulant pre-workouts loaded with caffeine, and from that point on, it was a part of my daily life. I became reliant on it to go to the gym, I became reliant on it for social interactions, and I became reliant on it to do work and to focus. But then after doing more research and learning how there are a bunch of harmful effects of caffeine, especially coffee, messes with your digestion, spikes your cortisol, I decided to go 2 months without doing it, and I realized that, oh, I don't actually need this. And that gave me a new perspective, and now I have a much more healthy relationship with caffeine, where it's something I might dabble in a handful of times a week, if that, but I don't need it. But because it's a tool that isn't really necessary, C tier. I actually just made a video on sexual discipline, so I'm not gonna yap too hard about it. You can go watch it if you want. And I'm not just talking about quitting porn, being on nofap, whatever. I'm talking about overall complete control over your urges, your lust, and any sexual desires you have, as well as building the ability to transmute that sexual energy towards whatever you choose. As of right now, this is what I struggled with the most when it came to self-development, and mastering it, it's such a cheat code. I know a lot of people aren't gonna do it, and I don't know if it's an absolute requirement, because there's plenty of people who probably dabble with the sex pretty often and still do very well in life, so I'm not gonna put it as an S, but it's definitely an A. Nutrition is something that I've always thought about because I was in the gym and whatnot, but I was much more concerned with hitting calories and hitting protein, and that was it. But once you dive into how certain foods affect you, how certain kinds of carbs can affect you, how being deficient in certain minerals and vitamins can destroy your hormones and destroy your ability to focus, and you get all this brain fog, it's extremely important. Even the simplest things like cutting out most processed foods, cutting out fried food, and cutting out sugar and sugary drinks could absolutely transform the way you feel and the way you think. And because of that, it is S tier. Eat healthy. Cold water, the ice baths, the cold showers. Are they really the game changer that Huberman has led us all to believe? So I live in an apartment. I don't have access to an ice bath to do every single morning, so I can't really give you straight anecdotal experiences with that. But the literature has proven that it does cause an increase in dopamine, especially ice baths, that lasts over a long period of time. It's not like taking a stimulant or doing a line of coke that give you this big spike and this big dopamine crash. It's this gradual rise and decline, and when I've done an ice bath, I've noticed pretty profound effects. That being said, it is not the holy grail that people lead it to believe. It's just a tool to have in your tool belt, so we're gonna throw it in B. No, don't make me give up my beer. I've never struggled with drinking, but I've had some of the closest people in my life struggle with it, and I've seen the havoc it can wreak on your mind and your health. The thing about drinking is no matter what you think about it, you have to acknowledge that it is a poison that you are putting in your body. It will ruin your sleep quality, it will ruin your cognition, it will drop a nuke on your gut microbiome. That being said, is it something you need to cut out of your life entirely? No, there are certain life experiences where it may actually enhance it here and there, but if it's something you do every single weekend, going and hitting the clubs 3 nights a week, or even every single day when you feel like you need to come home and have a drink to unwind, then it's a problem and it's something you definitely need to fix. So I'm gonna put it in S tier, but I'm not talking about cutting it completely out of your life forever. I'm talking about having high levels of control over it. I love supplements, I'm not gonna lie. I have taken so many powders, pills, and capsules in my life because I am a huge proponent and believer in supplements, especially natural remedies to elicit certain things like boost testosterone. And because even if you try to eat clean in the modern day, our soil, our water, everything is so deprived of vitamins and minerals, it makes complete sense to utilize supplements, especially things like vitamin D, zinc, and magnesium, which if you are deficient in those, your hormones could get shreked. That being said, I can't put it on the same level as nutrition because the food you eat is going to have higher bioavailability of these things, and in theory, if you eat all the right foods and get sunlight, you don't need supplements. But I take a lot of supplements. Everyone I know that's into this stuff takes a lot of supplements. It's A tier. Dopamine detoxing, taking this period of time and just completely de-stimulating yourself. I've done it. I've seen the results, but the thing is that a dopamine detox is when people take these little breaks and then go back into their regular life. What you need to do instead is gain a deep understanding of dopamine. I have a free 30-minute video guide in the description below, and then enact dopamine regulation every day for the rest of your life. Figure out what things you should cut out entirely, figure out what things you should cut back on, figure out what things you shouldn't do early in the day because it'll sabotage you later. That being said, for people who are just so off the deep end, their brains are just nuked, their dopamine baseline is nuked, to enter this new self-improvement, dopamine regulating phase of your life, it may actually be beneficial to start with a dopamine detox for a few days. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure if I should put it in B tier or C tier because Like for me, it's C tier because I regulate dopamine in my day-to-day life. But for those of you early in your self-improvement journey, it would be at least B tier. So I'm going to put it there because I care about you. Courses are very polarizing online. However, I do think the general consensus is skewing in favor of them. When you talk about courses, there's so many people who are like, oh, it's a scam. Why would you buy a course? I can learn all this for free. That is true to an extent. The thing about courses is that what you're paying for is you're paying for someone's expertise. You're essentially hiring a mentor, and you're paying to get what you're trying to get in a fraction, in a percentage of the time it would have taken you. I am a huge believer in courses. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on them. I'll never forget, a year ago, I decided to purchase a writing course, and my content quality instantly skyrocketed once I implemented what I learned. So if I didn't purchase that course, I could currently be 6 months, 12 months, 2 years behind in terms of my writing skill. However, these things do cost money. If you have the money to invest in a course, it could absolutely change your life. If you don't, you simply can't access it unless you find it online for free. My personal opinion is that this is A tier because I understand that a lot of people just simply don't have any money. I'm gonna put it in B tier, but that being said, once you get the money, it would be A tier. So I'm putting it in A tier. Fuck you. I've only recently gotten heavier into fasting, where it's the point where every 2 weeks I'll go a full 30 something hours without eating. And I'm not a fasting expert. There's tons of literature on it. You can go look into Huberman, or Alex Becker has some interesting videos on it. But for me personally, it unlocked higher levels of mental clarity. It helped my digestion and my gut health. And there's a reason fasting is an integral part of the majority of religions and spiritualities, but it's not required. I wouldn't put it on the same level as like sexual discipline and walking and making money. So we're gonna throw it into the B. Oh, it's time to trigger some people. My perspective on religion and spirituality is I think there's a bell curve to it, because obviously a lot of people who are entry level into their religion, they're just dogmatic about it. They only believe it because their parents believed it, because their grandparents believed it. They believe everything their teacher says without questioning it. And that is a very low intelligence way to navigate life in general. I think my power is about to go out. I am openly Christian. I am openly a very spiritual person in general. I grew up Christian. However, the past 3 to 4 years is when my belief and my faith in spirituality and religion in general has skyrocketed. And that's where I think I'm starting to come into the opposite end of the bell curve, where I believe in a God because of my research, my intelligence, my understanding of the world. But I do think there's a lot of people that are in the middle that are like they're intelligent, but they're like the Reddit atheists intelligent, where they're like, there is no God, your sky daddy's cringe. But due to my personal experience, which yes is biased, and my perspective that believing in something, believing in some kind of higher thing is infinitely better than believing in absolutely nothing, I'm gonna put it as S tier. And if you are a cringe Reddit atheist, please leave me a comment about how I'm an idiot and wrong. Finally, dude, we got edging. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of put it in here as a meme, but there is a astonishing amount of people, including me in the past, that have edging in their routine. And while the reason people claim is that, oh, it helps you with stamina before you get into the bedroom, the reason most people do it is because they're porn addicts and their cope is, oh no, I'm edging, it's productive. Dude, it's fucking porn out there, bud. And while sure, you could make the argument that it does help you with your stamina, all you're doing is milking dopamine releases. And when you're in the act of doing a dirty deed, certain parts of your brain that you associate with presence and self-control go out the window. It does increase your likelihood of relapsing on pornography. Plus, when it comes to stamina, there's so many other things you could do that work perfectly fine. So I'm gonna throw this into the D tier. Spin the wheel. Spin the fucking wheel, okay? Journaling has saved my mental state more times than I like to admit, because you can pull it out and just dump all your thoughts, everything you're worried about, everything you're trying to figure out onto a piece of paper. And it's almost like you're removing it from your mind, removing all the negative emotion from your mind, putting it on the paper and getting that pulled back perspective on the grand picture. It builds your ability to articulate your thoughts. It builds your mental clarity. It builds your self-awareness. It's kind of goated. It's also something I mention in my videos, and I teach my students how to use it properly in mental mastery. But since I don't do it every single day, I feel like it would be hypocritical for me to put it in S. So we're gonna put it in A. Click it. Reading. I don't have to rant about this. You've heard about reading ad nauseum, but I can tell you personally, reading is what helped me the most in my self-improvement journey, and it is how I learned the things that I teach now. That being said, there are a lot of people that read just to flex that they read. They read a new book every single week just to load their bookshelf and mentally masturbate to it. When in reality, what I found that's best for me is read through books, find the ones that help you the most, that have the best perspectives, and that are written by the most authoritative people in whatever they're teaching, and develop this list of the main books that you will go back to and that you will master the concepts, and that's what's actually going to change your life. Plus, it's just infinitely better than the majority of self-improvement content, like your little attractive habits, and it has like an anime guy on the thumbnail. Like, these faceless channels just produce garbage content that's not actually going to change your life. If you really want to change your life, it's long form content, courses, and reading's goated. It's going into S tier. This is where a lot of self-improvement creators actually got their start. They were originally dating game pickup type creators, and then they broadened their horizon into self-development. And while there may be a lot of negative connotation when it comes to pickup, red pill, getting girls, sleeping with women, attracting women, yada yada yada, it still is probably one of the best ways to build your confidence in social skills, because there's a big difference between talking to a guy that is about on the same level as you or less, and talking to a girl that your mind wants to put on this pedestal because they're so pretty and booby. I do think for a lot of people it would be more beneficial than taking a cold shower, so we're gonna put it into A. Yes. Stoicism. The thing about Stoicism is that a lot of guys think they're stoic, but because they have low levels of mindfulness, of metacognition, of self-awareness, all they're really doing is repressing emotions, and they're unaware of it. But true Stoicism that these ancient philosophers actually taught is almost a requirement for masculinity, and is going to save yourself from making a bad decision so many times when you're able to observe your emotions, stop worrying about things outside of your control, and learn how to generate positivity regardless of external factors. And because of that, I'm putting it in S tier. Sleep. Yeah, you've heard everyone talk about it. Sleep is really important. I think the days of these motivational gurus that are like, I only slept for 4 hours a day and I got up and I just worked and worked and worked. The reason they only slept 4 hours a day and needed 20 hours a day of nonstop work is probably because their output was such shit quality compared to someone who optimizes their focus, optimizes their sleep, optimizes their productivity. But that being said, we've reached a point where it's kind of swung the other direction. People are getting autistic about their sleep. I mean, even I track my sleep, and it can be harmful because you could wake up and honestly you're fine, but you look at your app of your Oura Ring or your Whoop and you're like, oh no, my sleep was only 65% good. And that could sabotage your day because it makes you believe that you didn't sleep good, and thus you have a less productive day, when in reality, you were going to be fine regardless. But for those of you who do not have good sleep discipline, who do not have good sleep habits, who don't get a lot of deep sleep, it's extremely important, and just for a better life, it's required. So I'm going to put it in S. Save some of the juicy ones for the last. Yeah, retention. Retention is hard. Get it? Because you're wiener. But in my personal experience, when you combine this with sexual discipline and learning how to transmute that energy, it is a game changer. You feel more competitive, you feel more masculine, you feel like you can get up earlier, work harder, work longer. Plus, you can't ignore the countless stories of athletes and businessmen and high achievers that practice retention and attribute a lot of their success to that act. I'm currently on a retention streak myself, thank you for asking. But do I see it on the same level as making money, self-imitation? No, I'm gonna put it on B. Come on, baby. Show me the affirmations. Affirmations work when you do it properly, and I teach it to my students in mental mastery. The thing is, a lot of people just do it the wrong way. They think of this law of attraction. I'm just gonna say it over and over. I have a Lamborghini, and the universe is gonna like grant you a Lamborghini. But the way to do it properly is use affirmations strategically to reinforce a new self-image you're trying to have, and that is going to in turn program your subconscious for whatever you're seeking, whether it's a behavior within yourself or something from the outside world. So this is tricky. I don't know where to put it, because affirmations, when you do it right, are very helpful because you can just enact this level of self-hypnosis. I do think visualization is a little more potent than affirmations. So because of that, I am going to put it in B, but it's super beneficial when you know how to do it properly. Good old nofap, the thing that in the self-improvement space is almost guaranteed views because everyone struggles with touching the pee-pee. Nofap's been a part of my life for a while, for the majority of it in a bad way because I was struggling and failing over and over. The thing is that there's a difference between the nofap that we have is like, oh, I got this 10-day streak and then I relapsed, but now I'm gonna get a 20-day streak, compared to actually developing sexual discipline and quitting pornography for good, not just quitting it for a while, not just quitting it to get a certain result, quitting it forever because you recognize it has no inherent value. And honestly, I think the nofap community has done more harm than good for a lot of people, because all it does is it makes them kind of cut back on it, which in turn makes each time they do it more potent because they're depriving themselves for a few days and then they relapse, and thus their chemical releases are higher, which makes the act of doing it more compelling. So because the understanding of it is just so wrong and the community is so problematic, we're putting it with the edging down in the D. What are we gonna get? Scheduling! So here's the thing. I think that scheduling, time blocking, ritualization is honestly so much better than trying to build good habits. Because instead of trying to do this habit hacking, atomic habit strategies to implement all these different things in your life, you simply create a schedule, create a ritual that you are going to stick to no matter what, have it written down, have it time blocked out, and then it's just a matter of discipline in general instead of building all these little disciplines throughout. And honestly, I was the most unproductive when I would wake up every day and try to wing it. I was the most productive when I would write down the main couple tasks I need to do and when I stuck to my daily rituals of doing roughly the same thing at roughly the same time. So we are going to put it in the A tier. Click the video on the screen right now to learn how to kill your current problematic self-image and become that higher version of yourself in this cinematic masterpiece of a guide that I've created. Click it right now.